There was a time when opening my eyes in the morning felt like a punishment. The darkness was heavy, yet strangely familiar. It wasn't like the darkness of a room at night, where you know the dawn will eventually bring light. This was an internal darkness, endless and suffocating, that chained me down and convinced me, day after day, that life was nothing but an unbearable burden. I felt an emptiness so deep that the mere thought of getting out of bed drained me. Whenever someone asked how I was, my response was automatic, like a part of me still trying to cling to normalcy, while another part silently screamed to be heard. Every day I would stare at the mirror, searching for a spark of the person I used to be. But all I saw was a distorted reflection of someone I barely recognized. I was there, but it felt like I had already disappeared.
I'm Rachel Harper. Today, I'm sharing a story that highlights the deep struggles many face behind closed doors. This story is based on real events, but some names and details have been changed to protect the privacy of those involved. If this story resonates with you, please consider sharing, liking, and subscribing to the channel for more content like this. Now let's get into today's story.
My name is Emma Johnson. I'm 24 years old, and I work as a marketing assistant for a tech company in California.
I've always been someone full of energy, involved in various activities. During college, I was active in church, loved attending social events, and kept a busy schedule. You could often find me hanging out with friends or pulling late-night study sessions for exams. It all started subtly. In my sophomore year, I began losing my appetite, which I chalked up to stress. At first, I thought it was temporary and that things would soon return to normal. But what seemed like simple fatigue gradually morphed into an overwhelming lack of desire to get out of bed. It was as if an invisible shadow hovered over me, draining my joy from everything I once loved. At first, I managed to hide it from others, but over time, my depression grew, becoming impossible to ignore. The early symptoms were confusing and subtle, but they slowly eroded my energy. I felt a constant, inexplicable emptiness, as if nothing mattered anymore. Activities that once brought me joy and purpose now felt distant and dull. Even the thought of going to work became exhausting. I pushed myself to maintain the same upbeat energy, but it felt like I was merely acting. Simple tasks became overwhelming, and during meetings, my mind drifted elsewhere, unable to focus. My relationships started to suffer. Close friends noticed I was becoming distant, less eager to hang out. People from church, where I used to go weekly, began asking why I wasn't around. I didn't know how to explain it. My family tried to be supportive, but they couldn't fully understand. I remember my mom calling me almost every day, trying to talk, but I barely had the energy to answer. It felt like everything was happening in slow motion, and with each concerned question, I felt more incapable of offering any explanation. The more intense episodes were devastating. Some days I couldn't even get out of bed. The mere idea of facing the world felt unbearable. On those mornings, I'd wake up with a heavy sensation in my chest, a silent despair that made every minute a struggle. Instead of trying to fight it, I would lie there for hours, wondering how much easier it would be to disappear, to stop being a burden. One of my lowest moments happened at work. I was trying to focus on an urgent project, but anxiety took over. I rushed out of the room and locked myself in the bathroom, struggling to breathe. My mind kept replaying the same thoughts. You're not good enough. You're letting everyone down. After that, I made up an excuse to leave early, but deep down, I knew I was just running from something I couldn't handle. Isolation became my coping mechanism. I stopped responding to friends' messages, skipped family gatherings, and went weeks without attending church. Solitude felt less painful than the fear of being misunderstood. In the beginning, I thought I could handle it alone, that this phase would pass. But as the episodes became more frequent, I felt more lost than ever. The moment I realized I needed help hit me suddenly. After months of being trapped in darkness, my parents showed up at my apartment unannounced. They sensed something was wrong, and when they saw the state of my place, clothes scattered everywhere, dishes piled up, curtains drawn, they knew they had to step in. We sat down and had a hard conversation. I finally broke down and admitted how much I was struggling just to keep going. My mom held my hand and told me they wouldn't let me face this alone. Even with their support, accepting help wasn't easy. Part of me resisted treatment because I thought I should be able to handle it on my own. I was afraid of what people would think if they found out. The idea of starting therapy felt like admitting weakness, something I didn't want to accept. But with my parents' persistence, I scheduled my first appointment with a therapist. At first, it was uncomfortable, but gradually I began to trust her and realized that asking for help wasn't a sign of defeat. It was an act of self-care. Along with therapy, my doctor recommended medication to help manage the more intense symptoms. I was hesitant, but agreed to try it. The combination of therapy and medication brought the first glimmers of relief. My parents and a few close friends were supportive, always ready to listen and respect my needs. It was the first time I felt like I wasn't completely alone, and that with the right support, I could face this battle. Over time, I learned that overcoming depression required building a routine focused on self-care. One of the first things my therapist suggested was keeping a journal. I started writing down my thoughts and feelings every day. Putting my emotions into words helped bring some order to the chaos in my mind. Reading back through my entries, I began to notice patterns. Even on the hardest days, I saw that those moments eventually passed. It was a small but powerful realization. Another habit I developed was taking short walks outside. At first, leaving the house felt overwhelming, but I soon discovered that being in nature, even for a few minutes, brought a sense of calm and clarity. On one of these walks, I stumbled upon a local support group. I was nervous about joining, but hearing others share their stories made me feel understood in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Those connections became vital to my healing. I also rediscovered old hobbies, like painting and reading. At first, even picking up a paintbrush felt like too much. But little by little, art became a safe space where I could express my emotions without fear of judgment. The combination of therapy, family support, and these small moments of relief helped me realize that depression didn't define my entire existence. It was part of my life, but not all of it. One of the most memorable victories came on a rainy Saturday morning. I had just gone through an especially rough week, feeling like each day was heavier than the last. But that morning, I decided to push myself to do something different. I put on a jacket and walked to a nearby coffee shop I used to love before depression took hold of my life. Sitting there, sipping my favorite coffee and watching the world go by, felt like an act of bravery. It was a small gesture, but for me, it was monumental. As I took each sip, I felt a flicker of joy and connection, as if I was reclaiming a piece of myself I thought was lost. I even managed to smile at the barista and exchange a few words. In that moment, I realized I was making progress, even if it didn't always feel that way. Recovery wasn't a straight line. It was a series of small, meaningful steps. Each little victory reminded me that there was still a part of me that wanted to live, that was searching for purpose. Over time, those moments of courage added up, and I began to see that healing could be found in simple acts of self-love. Those small wins, getting out of bed, taking a walk, smiling at a stranger, became powerful symbols of hope. They taught me that recovery wasn't about perfection or never feeling down again. It was about showing up for myself, even on the hardest days, and trusting that brighter moments would follow. Today, I see my life through a different lens. The struggle with depression is still part of me, but now I have so many more tools to manage it. It's not always easy. There are still tough days, but I know I can lean on therapy, the support of my friends and family, and the practices I've developed to maintain balance. These resources have become essential for keeping my mind in a place of peace. I've learned that depression isn't a weakness or a character flaw. It's a condition that can be managed, but it requires being open to seeking help and investing in our well-being. If you're going through something similar, my advice is this: don't underestimate the power of small steps. Be gentle with yourself, and remember that tough days don't last forever. As challenging as it feels, there are moments of relief and even joy waiting for you. Every small move toward the light matters. There is hope, there is help, and you are not alone on this journey. It's possible to rise again, to rediscover life, and to find a purpose beyond the pain. Depression has taught me so much about myself. I discovered a strength I never knew I had: the ability to face each day with perseverance, even when everything felt meaningless. I've learned that asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. It's an act of courage and self-love. Despite the challenges, I've come to understand that I am worthy of living a life full of meaning and joy. Today, I know how important it is to keep taking care of my mental health and to stay open to the small moments of happiness that often show up unexpectedly. These moments, no matter how small, bring light to the darkest days and remind me that the journey is worth it. For anyone out there facing depression, I want you to know that peace is possible and you can rebuild your life. No matter how long or difficult the road seems, every step forward counts. There will be hard days, but there will also be victories and moments of hope. Keep seeking help, be patient with yourself, and remember that you deserve a full, meaningful life. You are not alone, and even when it feels distant, there is always a light ahead.
As we reach the end of Emma's inspiring story, her words remind us of the strength that can be found even in the darkest moments. The journey through depression is filled with challenges, but every small step toward healing is a powerful victory. If Emma's story resonated with you, or if you know someone facing a similar struggle, remember, you don't have to go through it alone. Share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. Your voice could be a source of comfort for someone in need. Let's build a space of support and solidarity, where everyone's struggles are respected, and every victory, big or small, is celebrated. If you found this story meaningful, like this video, and subscribe to the channel for more stories of courage and resilience. Together, we can strengthen this community and inspire more people to find their light, even on the darkest days. Help and support are within reach. You matter.